On this episode of Business World, we take a closer look at jobs in diplomacy. Does making a difference motivate you? Are you selfless and driven to be part of a bigger purpose in the service of humanity? Are you the type of person who will travel and work anywhere at a moment's notice? If you think you embody these values, then working for the United Nations may be the place for you. You can pursue opportunities in social development, management and administration, political science, or language professional. Have you ever wondered what it takes to become a United Nations interpreter? Interpreters working at the UN are expected to recognize, understand, and in a split second, interpret words into other languages. The range of interpretation subjects is broad, including politics, legal affairs, economic and social issues, and human rights. Providing interpretation at meetings is the most visible aspect of their job. To be able to provide an equivalent of most anything a delegate may say in 2 or more languages, interpreters spend much of their time maintaining and improving their language skills, as well as keeping up with current affairs. So the question becomes, how do you get to that level? It all starts here at Miami-Dade College. The Associates in Arts degree offers courses in language arts, history, economics, government, and more. So don't wait, enroll today and take advantage of this exciting opportunity. Welcome back. Today's guest is Gigi Gonzalez. She's a criminal attorney, and she's here to talk to us about the United Nations and what her success as a criminal attorney. Gigi, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much for having me. I am so excited to be here.
Awesome. That's great. We're glad to have you here. Gigi, can we start maybe by maybe you taking us through like what skill sets does an attorney need to work at a place like the United Nations?
Absolutely. I'm not necessarily familiar with working in the United Nations, but I know that any young lawyer who's interested in pursuing a career at the United Nations, it's very important to be diplomatic.
Right.
And to be diplomatic, you have to be able to network in a positive way, build relationships. And I think that works in every industry, not just for attorneys, but the more you network, the better able you are to climb the ladder of success. So I think by being diplomatic and by building meaningful relationships, it'll gear you not just for a successful career in the United Nations, but quite frankly anywhere. Awesome,
yeah, because a lot of our students, well, as you know, South Florida, you're a lifelong resident of South Florida.
Yes.
I am as well. And South Florida is a very, international city. And we have a very diverse community. There's a lot of people from Venezuela, Cuba, Nicaragua, other places. And I think politics, and especially international politics, is something that's prevailing. So a lot of our students here at Miami-Dade College are interested not only in like the United Nations, maybe the Foreign Service, and a lot of them are interested in becoming attorneys because I think it's a very interesting career. Can you share with us, let's talk about your career and your success. Can you share with us when did you know you wanted to become an attorney? Like when did it first hit you?
Oh, wow. Well, let me tell you, I was not one of those 7-year-olds who thought, I'm going to be a lawyer.
Okay.
Like, on the contrary, I thought I was going to be a TV journalist. I was in television production in high school.
Oh, wow.
I majored in journalism here at Miami-Dade College and ultimately FIU. And as I grew up and started exploring different interests and avenues, I realized that I had a lot of talents in different areas outside of television.
Right.
And my father is a criminal defense lawyer too, and I grew up, earning my high school allowance in the office, and I didn't want anything to do with law. I really didn't. I was trying to move away from it, but then I realized, the direction my life was naturally going in, so I said, let's try the LSAT, see where it takes me. I got a good enough score.
Wow.
And I was able to get into the Florida A&M University College of Law, and it's all history from there.
That's awesome. That's great.
Thank
But
you.
but now you're going to end up being a celebrity attorney, so the same thing, You're
Well, attorney
gonna get
first
both.
and then a celebrity on television, sure,
you're gonna
yes.
get both, yeah. So take us through that process. A lot of our students are considering law school. I know like basic stuff about, so I know that in order to be accepted into law school, first you need a bachelor's degree, 120 credits, right?
Yes.
What happens after that? You have to take an exam. You said the LSAT. Tell us about and once you take that, then you apply. What's the process like? And take us through that,
Sure.
so they can better understand.
Well, first I want to address I think what is a common misconception
Okay.
is that you have to be pre-law or criminal justice
Okay, that's a good
or
point.
some sort of, law-driven major. That's not the case. Like I said earlier, I was journalism. I specifically digital media journalism at FIU.
Okay, wow.
And that type of major did help me establish a good foundation to enter law school with. It was a lot of critical thinking, a lot of reading, a lot of writing.
Right.
And, that was able to guide me into my direction of becoming a law student. And so what I would encourage students to do is to explore majors that they enjoy, right? Where they're going to do well in, and that is going to engage their critical thinking skills, their writing skills, even their oral speaking skills, which is not necessarily an important factor in being a lawyer. You'd be surprised how few lawyers actually go to trial and go to court on a daily basis. But what's really important is finding a major that works for you, that you'll be able to get a good GPA in and enjoy, right? College is for enjoying. It's for learning and to level up, but also to enjoy the process.
Right.
So once you're done with your 120 credits, you would start exploring the LSAT, or even earlier before you graduated.
Right.
And what the LSAT is, it's basically an entrance exam that you study for a couple of weeks. I believe there's 3 areas of performance that you're gauged on.
Okay.
And then from there, depending on your score, you go ahead and you send your applications. You have referrals from professors and esteemed mentors, your transcripts, of course, a letter that you write to the universities explaining why you should be admitted.
Wow, it's very detailed.
Very detailed,
wow. Yeah.
and it takes time. It really does take time, but I think the hardest part about law school is getting in, quite frankly, because once you're in it, you're in it. I mean, it's tough.
Yeah.
It's tough.
It's good to know, right? Good to know.
It's a bear. But it's the most fun I never want to have again. That's why I describe law school.
Okay. Nice,
yes.
nice. You mentioned a couple of things. Well, one is like you have to enjoy what you do. I agree with that, especially if it's something that is challenging and it's going to be like a prolonged period of time. If you don't enjoy what you do, it becomes progressively harder to graduate, right? How many law schools should our students be applying for? Should they just say, well, I want to go to this law school, I apply for that one and maybe another one, or what, like 3, 4, 5? What should they be doing?
That's such a great question.
In your opinion?
Yeah, I think it varies. I was someone that just threw the spaghetti on the wall to see what stuck. Yeah. My sister, on the other hand, she just graduated from law school. She's now a practicing attorney also. And she was more focused than me. She had 4 schools in mind that she absolutely wanted to go to. She made sure that she had those LSATs correct to put her in range for acceptance in those schools.
Wow.
And then she had backups, of course, but she was goal-oriented in these 4 schools. She ended up at FIU. Meanwhile, I did it a little bit more varied. I applied to pretty much every state school and then a bunch of other schools and cities that I thought would be interesting.
Okay.
But it was hard to leave home, so I ended up in Orlando.
Hey, but that's not too. You left and it's not too far away, right? Like it's about a 3-hour drive.
Right, just far enough to be able to concentrate, but close enough to croquetas where I can come back anytime.
On the weekends, right?
Yes.
Let's talk about. I want our students to have value, get value at this. LSAT or LSAT? Okay, we can say both. They're interchangeable.
Say both,
okay.
yeah.
Let's talk about the preparation. I've heard is very expensive. I know Miami-Dade College has test prep and it's affordable, but in general, what price range? What's the preparation like? What's the price range of the preparation? Like, how is it done? Like, give us an idea.
So I remember when I took the LSAT, I used Test Masters.
Okay.
And I did the online course because finances were also a barrier for me. I took the LSAT the summer after I came back from study abroad, which I was already. Yeah, I was.
Tell us about that after.
Oh, I would love to. You won't get me to shut up about it, honestly. But I did that after, and I chose the most cost-effective program. It was online education.
Yeah.
And it is expensive, but what I will say is that there are free resources online.
Right.
And it's been a while since I was that I took the LSAT. I don't want to admit it on television, but it's been a while since I did it, and there weren't as many resources available as there are now.
Okay.
Like I know of kids that are turning to YouTube for all of their LSAT prep.
That's a good point. That's a great idea. Actually.
Yeah,
it's a wonderful idea.
YouTube University is it's not accredited, but it is a legitimate means of learning, and that's one of the greatest things about the internet is that there's so much access to knowledge that there's really no barriers anymore to education.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah.
With the
So
massive online courses
yes.
and even like professionals that like give back and do videos. It's a very good point. What was like the most enjoyable part about law school? And what was like your most enjoyable, was your favorite, and what was the most challenging, or like the things that you just absolutely don't ever want to do again?
Yeah, the whole process I never want to do again.
Okay, hey.
To be honest, but truthfully, I'm someone.
The good news is you don't have to.
Exactly right. Yeah, it's
So,
behind. The most fun I never want to have again. I tell that to everyone, and I do mean that. And I think it's because I get to say that because I chose law school because I genuinely wanted to pursue it. I didn't feel like it was something I had to do to make money or anything like that. And if that's your motivation, like, good luck, all right? There's plenty of articles that'll tell you that that's not the best way to make this decision, especially when you're considering taking on student loans, especially when you're considering taking on the sacrifice that law school is. I mean, let me tell you, when they say forget about your social life, forget about your family, forget about your friends.
It's real?
It's real. It is absolutely, and that hit me like a ton of bricks. And I think that was definitely one of my biggest challenges. I've always been an engaged student, the type of student that sits in the first couple of rows, pays attention, takes her notes, does well on exams. And law school is a completely different bear, so you have to want to do it to be able to overcome that, because it's really difficult, and they test you that way. They want to challenge you. They want to see if you are up to par to make sure that we're getting the best of the best here. Wow. So if, what I would motivate anybody who's interested in pursuing law and going into law school to do is to really enjoy the process, because being dedicated to it completely will help you overcome all of these hurdles and obstacles that law school presents to you.
Wow.
And the entire thing's an obstacle. So I can't tell you what I did or didn't enjoy the most. I definitely enjoyed the camaraderie, the friends I made.
Is it done in a cohort, right? It's done in a cohort. Like you all start together and finish, or not?
Yeah. So, well, the first year you're divided into sections. And each section has, maybe 60 to 100 people in it. Depends on what the total class load is in the school. But those are your ride or dies that first year. You're going through it together. You're in the library, waking up, staying up late, chugging coffee. Yeah, so you definitely, you look back
get to
on
know
your
all those people like really, really good.
Yes, and a lot of them are lifelong friends. We go to each other's weddings. We send each other cases.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, it's a wonderful camaraderie that came at a high cost.
Wow,
yeah.
I can imagine. All right, so you want to share? I would love to hear your international study abroad experience.
Yes, I would love to. So I studied in Sevilla. That's in Spain.
Spain, yeah.
Yes,
wow.
I was doing a journalism program there. I was there for the summer. And let me tell you, I encourage everyone to do it.
That's
I
cool.
encourage everyone to study abroad, to take the opportunity now during undergrad, to explore different cultures, to immerse yourself in different experiences, because it really does change your perspective on life and your goals.
I mean, it's an amazing. I actually been to Sevilla. Yeah.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, I went there. I went to Sevilla, and then we crossed over to Morocco.
Beautiful!
And we passed by Gibraltar. I mean, Morocco is a very, very interesting experience. I'll tell you about it later.
Yeah, sure. I heard it's a wonderful place, great food.
I had couscous. The only thing I'll warn you is, warn everybody, the couscous that we buy at Publix, it doesn't taste the same as the real one in Morocco.
They say the same thing about Chinese food here. So Chinese food here is not the same as in China. So that's why it's important to immerse yourself and learn and say, oh, that's not the same couscous I remember.
Yeah. Gigi, thank you so much for coming. Friends, we're going to take a short break, and we'll be back in a second. Thank you. Welcome back, everyone. We're here with Gigi Gonzalez, criminal attorney. And what we're going to do now is we're going to talk about some major cases that you can see on HLN. And we're going to kind of like, just kind of like do a sampler of what's going on, Yeah. What is one of the cases that sticks out most in your mind?
Oh my gosh, okay. So the case that sticks out most in my mind, one case that's dominating the headlines right now is the trial of Kyle Rittenhouse up in Kenosha County.
That's right.
He's the person that's standing trial for the death of a couple of protesters that he engaged in a scrap with.
Right.
To be kind to the accused, that's pretty much the facts are in play.
Okay.
And right now the jury is out for deliberation. They've been out for almost 2 days, which is pretty interesting. Super
interesting. I'll be honest, I didn't see the entire hearing, but I did see some parts and they just stuck in my mind. The first thing that I just can't understand, right? His mom drives him to the protest/riot with a machine gun. Or it's not a machine gun, it's a rifle, whatever. It's
right.
a machine gun. It's a machine gun/rifle, right? And I'm a Hispanic American from South Florida, and I can't understand the context. We talked about it off air. Hispanic mom would never do that in 100 years, so I'm like, what? Can she be, we can argue ethics all you want, but can she be like, not that I want, anything to happen to her, poor mom, but can she be like criminally charged, or is she somehow responsible?
It depends. I think first you have to see what the outcome is in this case. If the jurors find that he was not criminally liable or responsible for the death of these victims, then there was no crime. He's being acquitted, right? And with that said, you'd also have to, there's delicate elements that I think would prevent charge being brought against her. For example, they would have had to be in cahoots, plan some sort of scheme. Listen, I'm going to drive you to this protest. I know you're armed, and I know you're going to use those arms for nefarious reasons, and I'm driving you anyway. It's sketchy to drive around.
You saw my facial expression. You're like,
I read it.
Well,
listen, at the end of the day, you have a right to bear arms.
There you go. That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Not that I thought it was a good idea, obviously.
Terrible idea.
It's not a good idea for
hindsight, awful.
Because I think when it happened, he's 18 now, but if I'm not mistaken, I think he was 17 when the incident happened. It's just a bad idea. But then he says, or he alleges, right, to use a legal word, he says that he was there to, I believe, protect property and to help anyone that was injured. He's not an EMT. Now, they discovered that in the hearing of the trial, right? But he does have some certifications. If I remember, he has like first responder certification, stop the bleed, and he said he has another one. I don't remember what it was called. So, again, I kind of see I see both perspectives, but we do have a right to bear arms in this country. He alleges that he went there to provide aid and protect property. And the reality is, we've seen all the protests / riots / I think you can say terrorism, because they have assassinated police officers in cold blood. And I don't know, maybe he thought he had a duty, right? And I think that's what happens. That's one of the downsides that happens with like causes that are important. That you have the right to protest, and yes, this is a good cause. But if there's a way to separate all the other elements, right? Because I think people hijack certain causes.
Yes, that's common. That's common.
It's very common.
With with the protests surrounding George Floyd, for example, here in Miami,
right.
What we found was a lot of the folks that were arrested, for the activities they engaged in during the protest, right? Because protesting and rioting are two different things.
Right.
Those are not protest is our First Amendment right to practice, and we no, absolutely. Yeah. We're allowed to practice our right to protest long as it's within the bounds of legality. But you're not allowed to set fire to businesses. You're not allowed to turn over cars and start a riot.
You're not allowed to murder police officers in cold blood while they're doing a report. You're right.
No, of course not. Those are two separate things. And what we found were a lot of the arrests in Miami-Dade County were from folks out of town coming down to use this protest in order to cause, trouble.
Right.
And I think that's what you see is that these types of incidences where there's mass people gathering, people take advantage of it. It's unfortunate, but it's a reality, and that's why it's a crime, and it's
For sure.
it's acting accordingly. Now, you brought up the certificates. What I find interesting, if I'm not completely familiar with the certificates and what his reasons are for being there,
Right.
but if that were the case, I would believe that if he's there intending to render aid, I believe that, you know, instead of bringing a military-grade gun,
Right.
you would bring maybe some Band-Aids,
Right.
you know, some sort of kit to provide aid to people, CPR kit, you know, something to that effect. And, you know, so it's hard for, I think, the average person to rationalize that someone is going to a protest armed to the nines and not looking for trouble, you know, standing by to render aid.
Listen, I mean, it's complex.
Very, yes.
It is. Let's do a sampler. Let's go to Jodi Arias' case. So I don't know, for our viewers, maybe they'll know Jodi Arias so this took place in Mesa, Arizona. She was dating Travis Alexander, which was a Mormon. Jodi Arias adopted the Mormon faith, and apparently, you know, the relationship got toxic, and it ends in Travis Alexander being murdered. If I remember correctly, he was stabbed, I think it was about 27 times, and then he was shot in the head, I think multiple times. And Jodi Arias dragged the body something like 10 feet. Mind you, she's only like 120 pounds. And it was just, it's a tragic story, but at the same time, it's an amazing story because Jodi Arias has so much talent, and as well as Travis Alexander. Travis Alexander's I see the guy, we would have totally got along. We would have totally been friends, right? Like, you know, and I was telling you, like, you know, I see Jodi Arias and in the court, and when she starts talking, you can't tell who's the attorney and who's the defendant because she has such a strong camera presence. And the same thing when she's being interviewed by the media, it's like, whoa, forget about the host, like, look at the guest, and she just kind of takes over. You know, it's like super tragic. What are your thoughts on that case? Any chance for an appeal?
You know, my understanding is that she received life without parole in 2013. That means she's sitting there day for day until she passes, unless she's successful on some sort of appeal. Now, I believe she was asserting some sort of self-defense, right? Either that she was a battered woman and that it was driven to this, or that there was an altercation at the scene, and that's what caused, you know, the 20-plus stabs and the gunshot to the head. You know, it's an interesting topic. You know, I think a lot of people are surprised to hear this stat, but the person, if you're ever murdered, right, the person who's most likely to murder you is the person you're sleeping next to at night. And statistically more likely for women than for men. So you get to enjoy that privilege, right?
Right. Well, I don't know if you call it. I'm joking. I know you're joking.
Yes, thank you. But, you know, what you find is a lot of these cases, you know, you see a lot of battered women or battered spouses be driven to the edge, and they ultimately commit a murder, right?
Yeah, no. I mean, it's horrible. You know,
oh no, awful, absolutely awful. And I think that if evidence comes forward of either some sort of technical flaw in the case or evidence that proves that she was innocent, she may be successful on appeal. But appeals are very difficult to win.
You know, it's interesting. The attorney that represented her wrote a tell-all book, and then she sued him. His license got suspended. Or they're going to suspend it, but then he just he turned it in or whatever. And he made like a few $1 million off the book. So he's like, you know what, I'm not doing this anymore. And just he moved on, you know. And you want to hear something funny? During the trial, like, you could see the attorney, you could see the stress in the guy. And after the trial, the guy lost like 25 pounds. He was like all relaxed, like, oh, I feel better now. You know, he made a few $1 million. It worked out for everybody, you know. Worked out for everybody.
You caught onto a really interesting topic where, you know, a lot of attorneys, a lot of advocates, I mean, to prep for trial is very difficult.
I can imagine when somebody's life is on the line.
Exactly. Like, you know, we're not exactly surgeons on the table, like with someone's heart in our hands, but
somebody's life is.
But someone's life in your hands, and it's the same delicacy and the same, you know, exertion of energy trying to save them, maybe even more.
Right.
You know,
unless you're a psychopath. I'm sure they're out there.
Yeah, I'm sure they're out
like,
there
hey, it's all
practicing criminal law. Maybe in Miami,
I'm
not
going
one
on
of them,
vacation now. It didn't work out. I'm going on vacation.
Well, it's very taxing, and especially when you advocate to win. You advocate, so to receive a guilty verdict at the end of that type of trying trial, right? It's devastating, not just for the client. Of course, for the client, it's awful. Your life is essentially over. But as an attorney, you feel depleted in all sorts of really messed up ways. It's tough to come back to, but we have to because that's our job.
Absolutely. Let's transition. We're going to do a sampler. What do you think about, do you remember the Gianni Versace assassination?
Yes. Okay, so I'm going to be honest with you. I was a total Spice Girl. 1998, I was 8 years old, so my familiarity with it is in the past tense. I don't quite remember it as clearly as maybe others do.
It was again, very, very tragic, but unfortunately a very moving and powerful story. Obviously Gianni Versace is an amazing designer. They made a really good movie, American Crime Story.
Yes.
I don't know if you saw it.
Yeah, I watched it.
It's really
it was
good.
Incredible.
Yeah. And I know the Menendez brothers, which that was a long time ago, which was two Cuban Americans. They allegedly they were sexually abused, which I believe it because they actually murdered their both parents. I mean, for you to do that, I mean, wow. And they weren't mentally ill. I don't know. For you to do that, there has to be something there. I think. I mean, I don't know. Maybe
those two cases that you brought up highlight the different types of defendants that we have here, right? On one end, you have someone with a severe mental illness and who's also very calculating,
right?
And then on the other hand, you have defendants who were driven to the edge and did what they had to do because they felt that they had to do it to survive or to escape this atrocity that they were suffering.
Yeah.
And it just goes to show, how varied, cases can be. You can have defendants who are totally, completely innocent, who are convicted of heinous crimes, and you can have folks who are accused of heinous crimes who may have done it but are found not guilty for all sorts of interesting reasons or technicalities. So it really does show, the difference between defendants and the circumstances.
Awesome. And on that note, American Crime Story. They also have the O.J. Simpson story, which is an amazing story. I got to tell you, John Travolta. I mean, he was an amazing. I don't know if you saw it.
Yeah, I did.
He was amazing at that role.
I barely recognized him. He really immersed himself.
He just embodied the defense attorney. And I don't want to do it, but there's a point where they're talking about a press conference, and he's like. He starts doing these gestures. He goes, what we need is another press conference. And he starts doing these big hand gestures. I mean, the guy was just amazing. I take my hat off to him. He was amazing.
Yeah, he's an incredible actor.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us. Gigi Gonzalez, criminal attorney. Gigi, thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me, Mike. I appreciate it.
Awesome.